It was actually my first month on the job. We got a call from an executive at Amazon, and he said, we have this DSP, final mile opportunity. We ended up getting awarded the work, and so we started our first location in Austin. We grew it to Houston, and we went to San Antonio, and we went to Lubbock as well.
How big did that business get?
We probably had 250 drivers at our peak. It was really big. We ended up, I want to say we were a top 3 largest route DSP provider at Amazon at our peak.
Wow.
We've been as high as doing $10 to $20 million in a year. So we ended up doing very well.
Winning the business is one thing.
Yep.
Managing growth is a whole nother dynamic. How you manage from 0 to 250 drivers, maybe the downside of that too, and then obviously how it transition to the end of it.
Amazon moved over to the Amazon DSP 2.0 model. They wanted to be more decentralized. I don't think they wanted a lot of people like us in their facilities where I had more of a say. When peak comes and they say, hey, you got to double, triple your routes, and I say no. Amazon doesn't like that. Let's just say I had leverage, and so we ended up splitting ways, and it was extremely refreshing.
What's your outlook on the last mile delivery space and where it goes?
I really look at it in 2 ways. Is we have to identify trends, and we have to identify broad narratives. So I think we're looking at new trends. You mentioned drones. I think there's going to be a lot of regulation around drones. Self-driving vehicles is going to be very interesting. I would see self-driving is going to be a broader narrative, and I think it's going to challenge the Uber model right now. And where does that take us? I think we're going to see the self-driving vehicles penetrate either the middle mile or the final mile first.
If there's one thing we know about last mile logistics, it can be the most challenging but critical component of any supply chain. But drop-off, they make it easy. I sold my business to drop-off a few years ago and had a first-hand experience to see why they're the leading provider of same-day delivery solutions in the healthcare, retail, and industrial sectors. National brands trust Drop-Off to deliver same-day solutions with transparency and timely deliveries to satisfy their needs. Rated as one of the best places to work by the Austin Statesman and a proud recipient of the Inc. 5000 fastest-growing companies in America. Drop-Off is transforming the $30 billion same-day delivery industry. Call 888-DROP-OFF or go to dropoff.com and let them serve your needs. Now back to Last to First.
My name is Sam Wiggins Jr. I'm president of City Couriers, and you're watching the Last to First podcast.
If there's one thing we know about last mile logistics, it can be the most challenging but critical component of any supply chain. But Drop-Off, they make it easy. I sold my business to Drop-Off a few years ago and had a first-hand experience to see why they're the leading provider of same-day delivery solutions in the healthcare, retail, and industrial sectors. National brands trust Drop-Off to deliver same-day solutions with transparency and timely deliveries to satisfy their needs. Rated as one of the best places to work by the Austin Statesman and a proud recipient of the Inc. 5000 fastest-growing companies in America. Drop-Off is transforming the $30 billion same-day delivery industry. Call 888-DROP-OFF or go to dropoff.com and let them serve your needs. Now back to Last to First.
All right, welcome back to a next edition of our podcast, Last to First, where we talk to the latest and greatest innovators, owners, operators, the people leading the charge on how this space is evolving from last to now first in today's supply chain. Joining me is a guest today who is an up-and-comer, a leader in the space, and very honored to have him on our podcast. Today we have Mr. Sam Wiggins Jr., president of City Couriers. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you
exciting.
came. You didn't realize I moved to Austin, did you?
I didn't, no. I understood you spent time in Tennessee and New Orleans,
Yep.
right? And then now glad to have you in the great state of Texas.
I've been in your home state for 3 years now.
I know. Born and raised Houstonian, but I'm very proud to be a Texan, so glad to have you, man.
Yeah, welcome to Austin.
Awesome, thank you.
You spent a lot of time here in Austin.
I haven't been here in 5 years. This is my first weekend, yeah. So I used to do a lot of business here in Austin. It was one of my first big projects. My dad spent his 20s here, so he always had me as a young kid coming out.
Yeah.
I love Austin. I wanted to go to UT as a kid, but life took me elsewhere.
Yeah.
But it feels surreal to be back, but I'm happy to be back.
Good. All right, so let's get into it. So tell me a little about City Couriers, kind of the size of the business, kind of what you guys do, where you do it at, just a little flavor of City Couriers.
Sure. So we're a final mile delivery service. So we started off 1981 as a traditional courier, doing anywhere from 100 to 150 vehicles is really where we fluctuated over the years. We've gotten into larger freight especially the last decade. But our home base is Houston. It's our only brick and mortar. We've copied and pasted certain operations into other cities, other states, depending on if the customer really likes the service. But I tend to tell my customers, give us a shot here in Houston. That's where we're best. it's our backyard. Let's get the operation off the ground. If you like it and it's something we can scale, we'll take it elsewhere.
Got it. So 150 vehicles, what type of fleet are we talking about here?
Yeah, so we do cars, SUVs, pickup trucks, Sprinter vans, and we also do 24, 26-foot box trucks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a wide variety of range of vehicles. What are the types of services you guys are offering?
So I really break up our business into 3 sectors. We do fleet replacement, we do on-demand delivery, and we also do a lot of routed work as well.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's break those down for the audience. So fleet replacement, just give me a quick synopsis of each one of these. What does that really mean for, if I was a 6th grader, right? Explain it to me.
Yeah. So fleet replacement to us is if a customer needs a dedicated vehicle on site, that's really what we do. We just provide a dedicated vehicle for the customer. Maybe that is priced in routed terms, per stop terms, or it's just a flat daily rate. Whatever the customer is really looking for there.
Got it. So it's a dedicated route. You're providing kind of a man in a van kind of scenario, and the customer is dispatching that driver, kind of controlling the driver's day.
Exactly. So sometimes the customer dispatches out the drivers directly. Sometimes we do it for them. Just depends on the model that the customer is looking for. But yeah, if I'm ever doing sales and I'm doing a cold call and they say, hey, we have our own vehicles, that's what I like to hear.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. And then you mentioned on demand?
Yes, we do on demand. We only do that in Houston.
Okay. That's
just where we have the fleet built out for it. We have the infrastructure for it. But yeah, that's really the bread and butter of our company since we started. It's a good chunk of our business, but I would say the fleet replacement and the routed work has grown probably the last decade more than the on-demand.
Got it.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between the fleet replacement and routed?
Routed could be, we really maybe don't show up to the customer's location. Maybe we're picking up at their customer's location, but it's the same pickup and drop either every day, every week. Maybe the pickup and drop changes, but for the most part, the driver has a set schedule for that customer, and they're doing routes. Now, we also may commingle some routes with certain customers. We're just trying to build route density. So how can we make that truck as efficient as possible? Usually fleet replacement wise, it's dedicated to that one customer. If it's routed, it may be for an individual customer, or it may be commingled.
Okay. Okay. All right. So from a driver, like a model standpoint, in our space, people use, whether it be in 1099, independent contractor driver, some people use employees or hybrid. What does your mix look like?
Okay, so we're 100% IC right now.
Okay.
We've done employee drivers. We did it with Amazon specifically.
Oh, Amazon.
Yeah,
Amazon. I got to get back into that.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that.
It's a rabbit hole for sure. But I'll tell you, handling ICs is a lot less of a headache. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And so ICs do all 3 of those services. Talk about the type of clients that you provide these services for, like what industries or verticals, who's using these fleet replacement, on-demand, schedule routed services?
Sure. I've been lucky enough where I've been running, I've come into a business where it already had a few hundred different customers that give us business every month. So there's a lot of different verticals. We do anything from retail, auto parts, pharma. Houston, local customers could be oil and gas.
Yeah.
It could be industrial equipment suppliers. It could be printing companies. It could be payroll companies. I mean, the list really goes on and on. But basically, anyone who has their own vehicles, I'm really going to target them. But then you never know. There's some local companies who just need some help every now and then, and we're happy to help those people as well.
Got it. All right. So last question, just kind of on the overview side. So 1981.
Yep.
Parents founded the business.
Yep.
Were they drivers early on in the business? Did they kind of true owner operators at that time?
Yeah, my dad always said to start a delivery service, all you need is a car and a phone. And so that's what it was. He had one of the old Volkswagen vans.
Yeah.
And he was dispatching and driving out of the van.
Wow.
They actually had an office location and actually burned down early on. And believe it or not, a crazy story actually, all their checks were in one part of the office, and a lamppost fell and covered it. Everything burned except for the checks. Kept them in business. How crazy! Yeah, wild story. But so when it burned down, they went back to the dispatching out of the van model until they could get their footing. But yeah, it grew. I know they had an office building downtown, but they always told me that one of the best decisions they ever made was they bought their own duplex office building in Midtown.
Okay.
Basically downtown Houston.
Got it.
So that was a great business move for them, and we actually ran it out. We ran the City Couriers out of there until about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I moved the business out of there to get into more like warehousing, cross-docking type opportunities.
Okay. I want to come back to that.
Yep.
About 10 years ago, I was sitting at an industry conference and I heard a speaker say the data will be just as important as the delivery. In today's fast-paced environment where the last mile has become the most critical component of today's supply chain, customers and shippers now expect carriers to do way more than just make a successful delivery. The game has changed, and having actionable data is the key to winning business in today's fast-paced environment. That's why the team at Dispatch Science has been setting the pace on last mile technology and dispatch software. Since 2018, Dispatch Science has reimagined traditional dispatching to solve the problems that stifle operations and reduce productivity. Need custom dispatch boards and multi-map views for your team by customer or by region? Challenged with turning a spreadsheet of stops into efficient and optimized routes? Or maybe you're looking to leverage API and EDI integrations to seamlessly integrate your customers across multiple platforms. Transform your operations using the integrated Dispatch Science platform. Reduce manual errors, streamline efficiency, and create smoother workflows and faster response times for your staff and your clients. It's a game changer, and their 3 pricing plans are listed right on their website. So if you're serious about taking your journey from last to first, visit www.dispatchscience.com or call 844-558-2011 and give them the discount code of L2F. That's right, L2F, and get 10% off your first month's invoice. Now back to last to first.
So 81 companies, zero, no revenue at all.
Yep.
40 years later, give me some sense of range of where you guys are in terms of size of the company, personnel, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, it's fluctuated, right? I mean, we've been as high as doing $10 to $20 million in a year. But yeah, it's fluctuated over the years depending on the margin of the account, right? Some accounts we've taken on have been lower margin than others.
Yeah.
So typically, especially for us to take on something low margin, it's got to be high volume. So the revenue's fluctuated there. But it's really dependent on what type of accounts we're taking on.
Yeah. So go back. So I want to dig into that a little deeper because I think for a lot of our guests who are looking at, or our audience looking at getting into this business, or maybe they're in this business trying to figure out, okay, how do I best spend my time to get the best ROI?
Yep.
Right? You mentioned margin.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 service types that you offer, fleet replacement, on-demand, routed.
Yep.
How do you look at those or rank those from a ROI standpoint? And talk about the blend and the mix and why not just do one versus the others?
That's a good question. So the fleet replacement is great. It's going to be lower margin, but I've just noticed over a long period of time, it's gonna be some of the best money you make, at least from our experience. It's just because it's automated, it's on autopilot a lot of the times. You're basically just recruiting the drivers, and we do everything from background drug testing, MVR check. We put our drivers in uniform, we train them. But when we set up, a lot of our best drivers we send to fleet replacement. So, we'll put them on the on-demand board, see how they work, and then we'll put them over there because our bread and butter for the last few decades has been the fleet replacement. And so we want to take care of those customers because at the end of the day, they've really taken care of us.
Yeah. And then your on-demand routed would be?
Yeah.
But typically, in my experience, on-demand is your higher margin, but
100%.
I'll be much more complicated to execute.
Yeah, so you're going to take on a lot more administrative heavy lifting there. So you need to be higher margin in terms of what you're charging and what you're paying the driver. So you're going to put more stress on the staff, right? Like if we're trying to get a 1 hour delivery done across town, it's going to be a scramble on dispatch to get that handled. So when they're working that, you don't want to lose out on opportunities where they could be working on something, more I would say profitable, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you're making your money there. If you're not charging enough on demand, you're going to either wear out your office staff and they're going to quit, or you're going to lose out on other opportunities that may not be as much heavy lifting, and you may make more money on the long term on those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we say on demand, 24/7, 365.
We've done it before.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm not doing too much of that. I actually may get into that here very soon for a specific customer that is going to make it worth it. Look, at the end of the day, if the money's there and the volume's there, I can pretty much do anything in 30 days.
Yeah.
So we've fluctuated with that model. I'll say the last few years, I pretty much stay normal business hours on the hot shot on demand portion.
Okay.
We'll do like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. pretty much.
Got it.
We'll do stuff on the weekends too, but I really need to know on the week, probably on Friday. More ideally, I do have people on call 24/7 to handle freight if it needs be, but
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not going to put my staff in a position where they can't enjoy their after hour time as well.
Yeah. I think it's an important call out because a lot of times, particularly in our space, when you have newer entrants into the market, you mentioned your dad said earlier, like all you need is really, it's a van and a phone, and you're kind of in the delivery business. I think the barrier to entry has probably changed a lot, and that's 40 years. I'm sure we can get into that too.
Yep.
But on demand is typically a starting point for a lot of folks because it's the harder work to do, and it's the skill set you need to involve probably lends itself to someone who's newer, has more time availability.
Yep.
But as a company evolves over time, you want to get to that more profitable, stable, consistent, recurring revenue.
Correct.
Which is the scheduled fleet replacement type work.
Yeah.
Of the business today, like how much of your business is the scheduled versus kind of on demand roughly today?
That's a good question. I actually so the three segments, I would say it's 33% for each. I mean, we're pretty evenly distributed.
Nice.
It may fluctuate here and there, but yeah, it's pretty even.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the origin story of the company. So, 81, why'd your mom and dad get in the courier business, of all things they can do?
Well, my dad, he had done like construction, he's actually started over 12 businesses in his life. I mean, he is entrepreneurial at heart, and that's what I love about this industry is, especially going to the shows, meeting guys like yourself, you can see that's what this industry is. It is entrepreneurial spirit. So my dad's done a lot of odd jobs. He started a delivery service with a partner, and it was called A&W, Anderson Wiggins Delivery. The partnership didn't work out, which I'm sure a lot of people who've tried partnerships out, it's similar situations. So he wanted to start City Couriers. He'd already met my mother through doing a delivery. She was working, she was a receptionist at a law firm. He was trying to get her business, and he got a date instead. And so, they got engaged, and they started City Couriers together, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, and it worked out. So they had split ownership of it, and they're kind of off to the races from there. It was also a different time then, too. My dad would do a lot of driver parties. He was friends with a lot of the guys that he was doing this with. Yeah. And, now I'll say I'm not doing driver parties where I'm hanging out after hours with my drivers all the time. It's a little different in that sense. But for them, it was also kind of a social event, too. Yeah. We were doing a lot of bike couriers back then. Guys were training for, like, triathlons, and on the side, they would do bike messenger stuff. Yeah. So it was a different culture and atmosphere at the time, and I would say it fit their personality. They're very social people, and but it evolved, right? Like you said, when more technology got involved, they were able to scale a lot more efficiently.
That's why you're speaking of the history, and it resonates with me because my mom and dad started business in '84, and I do recall same thing. These old Polaroid pictures of these parties they had. Yep. A lot of smoke in these pictures. Yep. Big cakes that open up from the top type of parties they were having back then. So,
exactly. Yeah.
I do remember when we had our Christmas parties, and they would be much more G-rated at the time. But I got involved. Like, how come kids do these parties with the smoke in the pictures? I want those again. But those were the good old days. But we've always connected on being second generation and kind of owners and involved in our family business. Yeah. What's your earliest memory from a child, like about the business? When did you first remember getting involved or doing your first delivery, mom and dad? Tell me about that.
It's a couple different ways. So I could never call out sick to school. As a kid, I would get brought to the office, and I would sit there and I would play computer games or whatever. But at the end of the day, I was in the office. I wasn't sitting at home watching TV and stuff. I was in the office, so there's a lot of sick days where I was in there watching dispatch, and they're doing their thing, and I got more involved. I'm one of 6 kids. All of us have gotten involved.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, all of us. So my sister Haley. Right. She's 3 years younger than me. Okay. We're currently involved in the operation, but I have some older siblings that got involved. All 3 of my brothers either did dispatch or they drove. And then my older sister, she did a lot of order entry and administrative work. But I had one brother who I remember I was in the 6th grade, and he would wake me up at 4:00 in the morning, and he says, "Hey, I gotta go do a delivery route today, and you're coming with me." So it's summertime for me. I don't have any plans. So so we're on the road, and we're doing a delivery route. And
you're 16.
I'm 12 years old.
You're 12. Okay. He was 16?
He was probably 20 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, he was driving. No, actually, I take that back. He was probably more like 25, 26 years old. But yeah, so I was running the deliveries in, and he was mapping it out in the key maps. This is, I mean,
Key maps.
Yeah, key map days.
Yeah.
So that was funny. So basically I was able to help him not have to find parking and knock out the route faster.
Kind of co-piloting.
Co-pilot, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was told I was the cutest delivery boy whenever I'd go into these law firms and stuff. But it was a good taste at what it's like being on the road as a driver. You know, you're all the ins and outs, the nuances of it. And then I was always the lawn guy, so I'd mow the lawn, so I did that aspect of it. And then one summer when I was in high school, my mother wanted me to help her out in accounting. And that's when I realized I don't want to do anything in an office setting at all. I did not like accounting. Just come to find out, it's not a strength of mine in the sense of I'm not interested in it. Like, especially I was probably, 14, 15 at the time. So that's where I was just like, okay, I got an experience in the office setting, accounting wise. I want to go all in on this sport thing.
Yeah.
I want to go play baseball, So that's really where a lot of my focus came from. I'm like, I don't want to do this whole office thing.
All right. So I hope I want to get to the baseball story, but at the time, so you're 12 years old, and you are getting your first taste of kind of being in the business, in the family business, right? Yeah. Did you think at that time that you would eventually get back here? Did it create like this desire to say, I want to run this business at some point in the future, or you just kind of shifted to like, maybe one day I'll get there. I'm gonna focus on ball. That's
a good question. So I'm just a kid at 12. I'm doing childhood things. It's the last thing I'm really thinking about. But I always remember my baseball coaches asking me that question. Hey, you're gonna run the business one day. You're gonna run the business, and I was like, I don't know. I'm just playing baseball, Where it hit me is my freshman year of college. I was injured. I remember very vividly. I'm going to a lot of doctor's appointments with my dad, and we're discussing what kind of major I want to do in college. And I did business management was what I was thinking about going into. And so I told my dad, I said, hey, I think the North Star for me is go as far as baseball will take me. But option B is I'd like to take over the business. So I wanted to make sure that we had that line of communication opened up, because if I'm going to pick a major, I want to make sure I'm taking that seriously too and have an avenue for that as well. Yeah.
So let's get into baseball. So I was a former athlete.
Yep.
You were too. You went much further than I did. You played professionally. Yep. I still aspire to have dreams to play professionally. Dreams. But there's so many things that I've learned playing sports, and then how it like directly relates back to business. But tell me your baseball journey for a second before we get into how it affects your professional life. Like, you were a pretty good baseball player, right? So what was that track like? Tell me how far did you get in your transition in that sport, and then what ultimately happened where you had to leave the game?
For sure. Yeah, I think it's great. As getting to know you, I love that's our background, because I think we can both agree it's translated so much into our professional experience. I can tell you I was never the best guy on any baseball team I ever played on. I was either middle of the pack, maybe sometimes bottom of the pack. But my dad always told me, I remember very vividly when I was in Little League, I was on a really good select team. They had me in right field at the time, and Little League right field is the worst player on the team.
That's the worst guy on the team.
It's the worst guy. And I was really upset about it. And my dad, he took me aside and he said, look, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you try to be the best at it. So if they're going to put you in right field, you be the best right fielder you can be. And then you pick where you want to play. So that season I became the best right fielder on the team, and I ended up choosing to play second base. Right? That was a very good mental framework for me to take every step of the way, because I can always tell you I was always undersized as well in comparison to my buddies. So I really had to overachieve in that way, work harder. And so my dad was my coach in Little League. He stopped doing that when I got a little bit older. Yeah. But we'd always go to the cage and work together, hitting and stuff at night. And that translated every step of the way. So high school, great experience, very good high school career. We went to state my junior year. It was actually here in Round Rock.
Where'd you play high school ball?
I played in Sugar Land in Houston. Okay. Suburb Sugar Land is Clements High School. Really big, great baseball school. Even growing up, Clements baseball. That was the thing. So that was the dream in that town. Yeah. It was like equivalent to football, if not even bigger. So it was great to play on and make it to state for Clements. And then I always wanted to go to UT. That was the dream school. Maybe San Marcos, Texas State. Yeah. I ended up getting a scholarship from Houston Baptist University. It's a small Division I school. And it was a great opportunity. It was close by. I was willing to move away. I would have gone to Tennessee or Florida or whatever, but it was a really good opportunity for me. It was a good baseball school, and we got into the Southland Conference, and we actually, my senior year, we won conference, and we took the team to its first regional. We are actually at a U of H regional with Rice and ULL. I had an outstanding senior season, and that translated to me signing with the Rays a few months later after the season.
Nice.
Yeah, and so we went straight into rookie ball.
Okay.
Rookie ball is interesting. For those who don't know, when you're going from college to professional, you're coming in halfway through the season for them, so you're really kind of thrown into the mix of things. And it's a culture shock. You're with a lot of different people from a lot of different countries.
Yeah.
And it is a culture shock. It is not American baseball anymore. It's world baseball.
Yeah.
Really. And so getting to work with people that don't speak the same language as you, and I was always a catcher. So you can imagine being a catcher, you got to communicate signs with the pitcher.
Yeah.
So I had to learn Spanish real quick there, because you're going to take a 100-mile-an-hour fastball to the face if you don't know how to communicate, right? So that was really interesting. Went back and helped coach and train that off season and go back to school with HBU, and then I went back for a full season. Ended up making it to Single A.
Okay.
Didn't get as much opportunity as I would have liked. I'm a very competitive individual. Every step of my career, I've always at least played.
Yeah.
So I got some challenges there in terms of how much opportunity I got, and I knew I had this opportunity with City Couriers, so I really wanted to kickstart my career, and I talked to my parents and I said I think it's time to transition to the real world, and I will say that adds another chip on my shoulder at least. I left a good situation. I could have stayed there longer. So fear of missing out, I have to capitalize on this opportunity of running the business. I can't let this go, because I left a really awesome lifestyle, but I wanted to come and make it even better.
Yeah. The lifestyle was good playing ball.
Well,
I always hear these stories about baseball players, like you're on these beat up buses, you're on the road a lot. It's not the most glamorous lifestyle.
No,
people.
It is and it isn't, right? The behind the scenes is not glamorous.
Yeah.
But when the lights are on and you're in front of 10,000 people, and you get that game-winning hit, and the place erupts, and you're getting interviewed, you're watching the news at night, and you're on there, and and you're also playing in the minors. You're playing with guys who are. Within 12 months, I had multiple roommates not only make the big leagues but make the All-Star team. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
I caught Blake Snell, multiple Cy Young winner, before he'd even made the big leagues. But we all knew he was going to be big. But it was a super cool experience. I got to go to work out at Tropicana Field very often when I was at the spring training facilities.
Wow.
My dream. As a 16-year-old, I wrote on things I wanted to do before I die, and one of them was hit a home run at a Major League Baseball stadium. We had a workout and ended up hitting a home run at Tropicana Field, so that was a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah.
So I checked off. I got to live my childhood dream, and that's a really special thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool, because most people, they don't even really maybe plan to have those dreams, writing them down. I do this with my kids now too, write down your goals, right? Because it's so important for you to see it and visualize it. You got a chance to actually live it. Yep. So then you transition from playing ball, being an athlete, having those goosebump moments of, the game when it hit, bottom of the ninth, and you come up to bat and the place erupts. So then at some point reality hits and it's like, okay, I need to make a choice to get to that next phase of my life, get into my professional career. I had a similar story, although my hoop dreams were cut short pretty quick at Vandy. About my sophomore year, I realized I wasn't going to go pro.
Okay.
But I do remember talking to my parents when I decided to come back into the family business. Walk me through what that conversation was like, and where'd you start your career off at City Couriers?
Yeah, so it was mixed feelings, actually. My dad was very excited. Actually, he asked me to potentially leave sports baseball a year ahead. He was getting a lot of opportunity with Amazon at the time. He was actually one of the first people in the door with them. Okay.
Give me a time reference.
So 2015, 2014.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's saying, hey, I need help. Like, this is exploding. And so I was like, look, I'm living the dream. I'm going to give it at least another year. So we did that. So whenever that transitional time was there, he and I had been talking. He was ready. He was excited. My mother, not so much. She loved the she had mixed feelings about me ever coming and joining the business. Anyways, she thought I had a lot of talent inside and outside of baseball. She didn't know if the industry would handicap my abilities. You know, and it, you know, I think my father and mother put me in a great position, if anything, to capitalize on them.
Yeah.
You know, so I can see where she is coming from. I think some people can come into this industry and take it as you know, an odd job, and I don't think I think she wanted me to not do that. Right?
Yeah.
She wanted me to excel anywhere in life, and she didn't want me to be around people who maybe didn't have the same drive as I did. And there are, you know, I think you're going to find that in any industry. So where I found it is, I wanted to choose where is my unfair competitive advantage, and I think working in the same office, my desk is right across the room from my father's. I'm absorbing information from someone who's 40 years ahead of me in my industry.
Yeah.
That's invaluable. Why would I not take advantage of that and also come into a business that's running and just take it to the next level?
Yeah.
So I saw the opportunity there, and I took it.
Now, did you have any other siblings working in the business at the time you came in?
Yeah, actually, Haley started before I did.
Okay.
She started before I did, and she was getting involved in sales. She was going to a lot of the conferences even before I did. My older siblings, they'd all kind of come and go. They didn't really take it. They took it more as the odd job than the career. So.
Yeah.
But also the business had changed a lot from when they were there and when Haley and I were coming in.
And Haley is younger than you.
Yes, she's 3 years younger than me.
All right, so I got to ask, because I have similar story. I have an older brother.
Okay.
Athlete, similar, was All-American in college as a punter. Went pro, didn't work out.
Nice.
Was trying to figure out what he was going to do next, and he got involved in a family business a few years before me, but took it as an odd job, right? He was basically a driver, you know. He was just let me drive, leave me alone, you know. He wasn't there when I got involved, but your younger sister was there.
Yep.
But you're the president. She's the vice president.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
So that's a good question. So I will say I did not start off coming in the business as president, right? I actually started off very humbly as the executive assistant to my father.
Oh,
Day one, what do you want me to do? Clean my desk. Oh man, I just got a college degree, man. I don't need to clean off someone's desk.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he didn't really know where to put me yet. And then we very quickly jumped into the Amazon situation. So I actually started off as a recruiter, really. And then that...
Walk me through as you're going through this. I'm sorry to cut you off, but the Amazon business too and what you guys were doing there, because I think I want to get to how that maybe evolves as well. Yeah,
so it was actually my first month on the job. We got a call from an executive at Amazon, and he said, we have this final mile opportunity. This is where they want to start the employee model, DSP, final mile. We'd already been doing middle mile delivery for them, DDU, post office work. And so we'd been doing really well there. And so Amazon, this is 2016, Amazon is just on their exponential growth curve right now.
Yeah.
So we're jumping into the mix, and the executive's like, if you're interested in this opportunity, you need to be here tomorrow. And my dad's out of town, so he had me go to Austin and interview for the position. And I went with my sister. And we ended up getting awarded the work. And so we started our first location in Austin. We grew it to Houston, and we went to San Antonio, and we went to Lubbock as well.
How big did that business get? Drivers?
We probably had 250 drivers at our peak. I mean, it was really big. It was really big. And so that was my first thing. Is we actually started a completely separate entity, LLC, because of insurance purposes, employee versus IC model. So we ended up growing it very rapidly, but that was my first real project I spearheaded. I was actually the president of that company. So I was doing, it was basically project management, right? I'm getting it off the ground, and any launch we did, I was there making sure everything's working. So I'm learning everything from onboarding, recruiting, accounting, HR. I'm learning everything pretty much on the job.
Did you learn a lot from Amazon in that experience?
No, it's a great question. I would say at the time, it's probably the best company in the world to go work for, really, as a first-time job. So I tell people, my first job really wasn't City Couriers, it was Amazon. I'm in an Amazon warehouse every day, and I met some amazing people, but I think a lot of people also know the culture of Amazon is very, very intense. So I'll say I was learning a culture of business that personally I don't think translates into a lot of other business models, but it worked. Obviously, it worked for them. But they were trying to grow the largest logistics infrastructure in the world, right, as quickly as they could. So it was an invaluable experience. I got so much positive takeaways from it. For better or for worse, I can say I definitely take a different approach to how I work with my employees. That's for sure.
Yeah. And so, okay, so your first real assignment is to land Amazon,
Yep.
right? So you land it,
Yep.
phenomenal. And now you have to grow. And that's one of the hardest things I think that I learned in my career was winning the business is one thing.
Yep.
Managing growth is a whole nother dynamic.
Correct.
Talk to me about like just the evolution of the management and how you manage from 0 to 250 drivers. And maybe the downside of that too, because I know a lot of folks started with Amazon and maybe not. I'm not sure if you guys are still doing a lot of work today or not.
We're not.
But now, how'd you evolve, from where you started with winning the account to the peak, and then obviously how it transitioned to the end of it?
Yeah, cash flow is huge. I mean, I can tell you, it's at least that the employee final mile side of things, DSP, it's very low margin. I mean, extremely low. And so if you're not managing vehicle damage, because you have to rent these or lease or own these own vehicles. If you're not managing that, you're going out of business very quickly. If you're not managing your cash flow, you're not going to be able to make payroll. If you're not hiring correctly, you're gonna burn probably your driver pool based on your management hiring, and so they're going to leave. You're going to have turnover. There's cost there. So I've made mistakes in a lot of ways when I was starting, but I also learned very quickly. We ended up, I want to say we were a top 3 largest route DSP provider at Amazon at our peak. Wow. So we ended up doing very, very well. Amazon moved over to the Amazon DSP 2.0 model, and so they wanted to be more decentralized. I don't think they wanted a lot of people like us in their facilities where I had more of a say. When peak comes and they say, hey, you got to double, triple your routes, and I say no, Amazon doesn't like that. So,
but that's because you guys were so big. You carried a little more leverage.
I carried more leverage, and I think a lot of people would exercise that leverage, whether it comes to payment, there's be a lot of things that can come into. But let's just say I had leverage, and I don't think Amazon liked that, and so we ended up splitting ways. And I can tell you this, it was certainly mutual, just because there's so many other opportunities out there. I learned very quickly after that there's better customers out there, and you just got to go find them. And so going from a world of only knowing that to starting in sales and learning the rest of the business, it was extremely refreshing.
Yeah. So you got a phenomenal on-the-job education with Amazon. And then when that business, you're maxing out, I'm assuming that was multi-million dollars of revenue at peak. The business leaves. Right. Now what do you do next? Like, how do you transition now? You have to focus back on the traditional business, on City Couriers, right?
Yes. So you're talking about managing the Amazon stuff. Managing City Couriers is a breeze in comparison. Independent contractor model, very different, much more pleasant customers to work with. It's not nearly as demanding. I mean, depending on the work, but for the most part, the work we were doing was a lot more stress-free. Let's just say that. So I ended up going straight into sales. How can we improve sales? I actually grew the Amazon business with one of my best friends. He actually started at City Couriers 2 months before I did. We're childhood best friends, and we ended up going to sales. So we start learning hardcore sales. We're doing mock sales calls together, probably 50 to 100 a day, and we're just messing with each other. How can we make that sales call as difficult to get through as possible, so when you do a real one, it's a lot easier. So this is before COVID. This is 2019. So we're actually going door-to-door sales. We're doing scheduled appointments. We actually have an inside sales rep, so she was setting us up with appointments. She was more so doing the cold calls. So we're getting more warm or hot leads. And it was great to go shake a hand and get to know the business owners and learn other parts of the industry. And then COVID hits, and it completely changes the game. So now we have to pivot. How do you pivot and adjust there? So you're starting to do Zoom calls, just phone calls. How do you cultivate a relationship with somebody in that environment? And it was certainly a challenge. I still, by far and away, love meeting people and face to face. But it's a reality. You have to work with it, and it still has not gotten back to where it was. A lot of people have gotten used to the Zoom situation, but it's certainly gotten better. That's for sure.
Yeah, they say that in the improv, I've had more success in person too,
Yeah.
than the virtual stuff. But one of the things that I think was invaluable for me, and I want your opinion on it, when the owner's the one out there doing the sales, kind of that hand-to-hand combat, talking to the owners, like have that listening ear on, you pick up so much, not just about how to sell, but then like what are your customers' needs, right? And then how can you outcompete your competition to meet those needs, and then what are the things you need to bring back to your organization? Mm-hmm. Walk me through just kind of the two or three things you picked up, doing that kind of guerrilla marketing sales approach, and then now you're still having to do it, but from a different environment, a virtual environment.
Yeah, it was great. I really got to learn where our pricing power was. So I'm a numbers guy. I love, math was always my best subject, and I love negotiating rates on the spot, on the fly, especially over time where I got to know my numbers. And so I very quickly, doing that sales style, I got to know where my competition was, because I'm going from this Amazon world to the broader delivery service world. So I'm learning different types of deliveries. I'm learning different types of delivery models, the fleet replacement, on demand, routed. How do you need to know what kind of margin to expect in those models. So I would suggest any business owner, especially in the delivery world, to continue doing sales. Yeah. My father, he always hired sales reps. I love it. I love getting out there. I don't ever see myself not doing it, because I think Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, he said whenever he buys a business, he would interview the president, then he would interview the top sales rep, and if the top sales rep knows more about the competitive market than the president, he fires the president immediately. And I love that. I take that because I need to know, as the president, I need to know my industry better than anybody else. Yeah. And so, yes, I need sales reps, but also I need to go talk to my customers and show face, and also understand what my price points are.
Yeah. I love it. It's a huge nugget. All right, now get back to the evolution of, so you eventually you ascend to the presidency. Yep. And I want to get into, second generation stuff, right? Yep. So I was second gen. My mom and dad were both in the business. I didn't have a sibling in there, but some other family member related family in there. So all kind of dynamics are at play. One of them was when I became the president too, and there was, you're balancing between nepotism versus just you've actually earned it, right? And then now you probably, as you said, you were 10, 12 years old, your first experience there. There's probably people still in that building that saw you as a little child, but now you're the president of the company. Yeah. Just talk about some of the challenges, the opportunities that you've had as a second generation owner working with mom and dad and siblings.
Yeah, there's so many different ways I can go with this. But the biggest thing is, for every opportunity, there's also a challenge, and vice versa, right? So a lot of us spend more time around our coworkers than we do our family oftentimes. We talk to them more often. So the opportunity there is to have that much greater of a relationship with your family member, because you do get to see them every day. You do get to have an even deeper connection and relationship with them. But with the challenge comes the day-to-day activity of the business, the stress that brings. Yeah. Business is stressful, whether it's stress declining, stagnant, or increasing. So you have to get used to communicating around stress. You also need a healthy level of respect for each other. I think we all know, within families, we've probably had knockdown, drag-out fights in our households, right? Oh yeah. How do you work with that when not only is other coworkers' jobs at stake, but also where money is at stake too? So a healthy line of communication and respect goes a really long way. I would say, communication-wise, are we communicating what are the expectations for each individual? Are we putting them in a job where they're fit to succeed? Putting me in accounting right away would have been a bad idea. I would have not probably have excelled nearly as well as doing sales and operations. So what are our strengths? Are we communicating, maybe this isn't the best fit for me in the job, and transitioning? I will say that's something that we did with Haley. She was in sales and she transitioned to accounting and more the back end administrative operations, and that suited her strengths, right? Also communicating levels of ambition and competitiveness. Like you said, you had family members who come in and took the job differently than others. I can say Haley and I have taken the job far more seriously than our older siblings did. But also, who is the final decision maker within that family dynamic? I can tell you, my father and my mother had, being married, they drove 30 minutes every day to work together for 40 years. I'm like, man, that's a lot of one-on-one time. Imagine having a stressful conversation at work and then having to do that drive home, right? So, but what they did was they had an agreement very early on is in some areas, my mother was the final decision maker. In some areas, my father was. And so at the end of the day, a decision had to be made, because no decision at the end of the day is a decision.
Yeah.
So a decision has to be made, and who is going to be that final decision maker? Because when we're aware of who that is, it gives us the ability to not lose the relationship for the sake of the business.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, those relationships matter.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose it. It's just not worth it at the end of the day. So who's the final decision maker? That one goes a long way. And then I would say, so having a clear hierarchy of who is in charge of what.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, so let's get back into the second gen piece. You talked about the things that you should have in place to kind of, we would call them scrimmages, and when at QCS, our family business, right? My dad and I both type A personalities, and we'd sit at our conference room tables, and my mom would be there, and she would literally have to referee us.
Yeah.
Most times it was kind of one of these deals.
Yep.
What was interesting about it for me was, not that we both had the same end goal in mind. Mm-hmm. We absolutely did. And that's one of the things I think people miss in these businesses. You mentioned like opportunities, yep. And one of my found the trust is there, because in our case, it's a father-son dynamic at play. But we had maybe two different visions how we wanted to get to that goal, yep. Right? He wanted to go left, I said go right. Yep. Tell me about a time, or maybe it's a couple stories where you didn't see eye to eye with, mom or dad,
yeah.
or maybe it's Haley. Like walk me through how you navigated that, or maybe you learned a lesson, but you didn't necessarily do it correctly the first time.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think going back to the communication point is having at least the North Star. What is the broad vision for the company? I think if you're in alignment there, sorting the rest out is really just the details, right? So, yeah, you can get in disagreements as far as the overall operation. I can say my father was very diplomatic. He was very good at taking people in, hearing what challenges they're going through, and coming up somewhere meeting in the middle. Personally, I don't like to split the difference very often. I like to say, hey, this is the way we're going to run the ship. Mm-hmm. I do need feedback, because I do need to make adjustments, but I want to be quick, nimble, and I'm going to make a decision. So broadly speaking, I would say our vision was relatively the same. My father is extremely day one. Technology is going to be the future. Learn everything you can about it. Bring me any feedback you get. Like he wanted to see what vision I had for the company and really allow me to do what I felt like would take the company to the next level. So I would say he was very good in that way. I would just say the day-to-day operational strategy or tactics, it was different. Yeah. But I would say he did a very good job of letting me do what I felt like I needed to do. He let me make mistakes. He also let me be successful. So, yeah.
So no story about like, this is one time where Dad and I it's just kind of.
I could say the one that jumps out to me the most is I'm a very professional guy, but one time we just got into it about like recruiting, and I'm just like, why are we doing it this way? And I'll say it was like my first year, and if the roles were reversed and that was my son talking to me like that, I would have said, you get out of this office. And he handled it extremely well. It was in front of other coworkers, and it was a good lesson. I'm like, I reflect, I'm like, I should not have talked to him like that, but the way he handled it was amazing. Only someone who's been running a business for 40 years could have done. Yeah. So no, I would say we haven't had many, if any, blow up fights at all. But that one was funny.
Yeah, yeah, but that's phenomenal, because that's the beauty of those dynamics. Because there's people talk about the bad side, but the good side is we're all learning kind of on the go to some extent. Yeah. And going back to that trust element that I mentioned, like your dad allowing you to make those mistakes. I had the same experience. Now my dad didn't always react as diplomatic as your dad may have.
Yeah.
But what I was able to learn and see is a level of maturity and understanding. And as a leader of the organization, like, you have to be able to be calm to steer the ship.
Correct.
During turbulent times.
Yes.
And there's no better place or person to learn from than the person that's kind of raised you and brought you up, and you've seen it since you were a young kid.
Right.
So there's tremendous benefits to the family dynamics. Talking about working with Haley, your sister. Haley is in the administrative function of the business.
Yes. So we've actually followed the same path really as our parents. So my dad did sales and operations. My mother did more of the HR, administrative, accounting background. And when we're all working together to begin with, we're trying to see our strengths and weaknesses. And just naturally over the years, it kind of fell into place very naturally. I took over really my father's roles, and Haley took over my mother's roles. COVID comes around. I'm not doing the Amazon work anymore. I've got at least a year of experience just running city couriers alongside my father. And he's thinking, hey, I'm going to step away from the business for health reasons. Same with my mother. A few months go by where they don't really need to do anything, and they realize, Sam and Haley, they got this. So I would just say the roles were pretty much already set. And also the communication lines with our employees. They knew to go to my parents for certain things, so it just worked very naturally. I would say one thing as far as communication that's really important is rituals, is what I would call it. But how do you keep coming back together? Some people may talk with their family member on a daily basis. Maybe they're in operations together. Haley and I are not in the same parts of the business necessarily. Now we do communicate for, what if I need to direct her in a certain area where we're in her part of her business. But for the most part, we do a 1-month financial meeting with my parents involved, my sister and I are involved, and it brings us back together. Because I think we know with family members, we may not always want to come talk to each other. Maybe we're mad at each other, But having those rituals in place brings you back together for the better. You need to continue communication, because I can tell you where the family business will break is when communication ends.
Yeah. Talk to me about the transition now to the future of the industry. But before we get kind of into that part of it, what would you say? So part of last to first is talking about our personal, professional journey from going last to first, right? You've had a personal evolution, baseball player. Yeah. What would you say is the most challenging part of the business today? What keeps you up at night?
That's a good question. There is a natural turnover in customers. I mean, you remember, I'm operations sales. That's where my first thought's going to go. It's not necessary. It's not even just remove service failures. You're going to lose customers. So you have to be selling. You have to be finding new customers, maybe educating potential customers. They don't even know that the courier model exists and that we can save them money. So I would say you're going to lose customers, and how are you getting new ones to replace them? I would say that's the one thing is I'm going to continue to sell over our customer turnover.
Got it. And then the future industry, right? So, look, man, when I was growing up, my early memories of being involved in business was literally like a carpeted wall, right? It has the little liners on it, and we had an index card. So when an order comes in, someone's writing on there. There's the customer.
Yep.
There's the pick, and it would slide across the board based on the order status, right?
Yep.
And they had the old, radio phone, walkie-talkies, and the big map on the wall.
Yep.
To now, you mentioned technology earlier. Technology is, it's. I would disagree with your dad now, that he was ever wrong, but you need more than just the vehicle and the phone.
Yep.
You have to really land sizable clients and really grow in the space. Technology is so important.
Yep.
Dispatch software is important. Even managing the back end, the KPIs, some of the things you probably learned in your early days with Amazon.
Right.
And then we also see the future of where this thing is going, right? We're hearing about, obviously drones are something we're hearing about a lot. We're hearing, autonomous vehicles, robots, whether it be in the warehouse, on the street, doing deliveries.
Yep.
There's all kind of things happening. Being uniquely positioned as someone who's been around because you grew up in it, but also fairly younger guy and seeing where the future is going. What's your outlook on the last mile delivery space and where it goes, and how are you planning to continue to be around for another 40, 80 years?
That's a good question. It's going to change so much, right? What is the Moore's law with technology is the production is going to 2x in half the time every 2 years. So technology is not only going to continue to innovate, it's going to innovate that much more rapidly. And so we have to stay a step ahead. And I really look at it in two ways, is we have to identify trends and we have to identify broad narratives. So good trend, COVID hits. everyone is making money off of a lot of new medical work that comes up. If you did not capture any medical work at that time, you lost on a big opportunity. So you have to identify that trend and capitalize on it. Now, a lot of the pricing was very, I'm sure Couriers made really good money on some of these medical clients that maybe just started a business or they didn't have experience with working with Couriers. Over time, it's going to stabilize. They're going to get experience. They're going to, they're going to run, RFPs and challenge you against your competition. So identifying trends is where you're going to make a lot of money. Now, the long-term narratives is also really important. You need to identify both. So a long-term narrative example would have been if you're in the early 2000s and you have a lot of taxi drivers in New York City, and if you would have gone to Silicon Valley and talked to a guy who's talking about this app that now all taxis are going to be booked via Uber app in the future, that would have been a good thing to bet on in this space. But that took a very long time to develop and put into place. So I think we're looking at new trends, but also what are the broad narratives? You mentioned drones. Drones, I think there's going to be a lot of regulation around drones. Self-driving vehicles is going to be very interesting. I love to go ride in get these new Tesla updates, and I mean it's wild what they're doing there. I don't really know, but I would see self-driving is going to be a broader narrative, and I think it's going to challenge the Uber model right now. And where does that take us? I think we're going to see the self-driving vehicles penetrate either the middle mile or the final mile first. It's to be seen. I think the tractor trailers makes more sense to me because there's a lot. Right now, tractor trailer drivers, it costs you an arm and a leg to get them out of their truck, let alone unload a truck.
Yeah, they don't like getting out the truck.
They don't like getting out the truck. So I think that'll be a pretty easy business model to replace with self-driving vehicles in comparison to a box truck driver who's doing retail work and he's breaking down pallets at the drop-off, right?
Yeah.
Or the final mile delivery where you have skateboarders jumping out in front of the car, right? And so it's tough to see, but you need to keep an eye on both.
Yeah. Do you think that the industry is ready for that type of evolution? Like you think about the guys in our space, right? So most of the people that we network with, do business with are, there was a study that we did at the CLDA conference probably maybe 10 years ago. And it came out that 67%, close to 70% of the owners in the space had no succession plan, had no plan for the future, right? So that's a little scary, particularly as this industry is starting to evolve and gain more traction and there's more opportunities now. Yep. Do you feel, you look at the half empty or half full?
I have to. I'm a very optimistic person. I have to look at it half full. So for me to maintain my pricing power, I have to do something that's in high demand. Delivery is in high demand. So we went over the trends and narratives. That's where you're going to find your high demand opportunities. I think also in conjunction with that, if I'm chasing high demand opportunities, if I'm also the best at what I do, I know my business very well. I know to hire for it. I know how to pay for it. But I also know how to be strategic and sell and position myself well. I think if I can be the best what I'm going to do, I can do that. And then thirdly, I think if I'm irreplaceable, so I have some sort of new technology, maybe a new patent on a new type of delivery. I have access to capital. I can grow very quickly. I have connections to where I can, call someone like yourself and get insights into some part of the industry that might be moving very quickly. So if I'm chasing something that's in high demand, I'm the best at what I do, and I'm irreplaceable, I think I'm going to be successful in the next few decades. I think people who are not chasing those things, I think they're going to get replaced with technology very quickly.
I love that.
Yep.
I want to wrap up with this. You became a board member a year ago of the ECA, the Express Care Association, which is one of the preeminent associations in the last mile same-day delivery space. Just talking about why you wanted to do that. Why was that important for you, and how has that journey been so far?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on it because you as a past president of CLDA, we work very closely together at ECA and CLDA. So I love the CLDA. I've been going ever since my first year with starting at City Couriers. I've learned a lot through there. It seems like the ECA, we're known for the speed dating opportunities. We sit down, carrier and shipper. and we have a few minutes to get to know each other, what our capabilities are, and see if we're a good fit outside of here, outside of that conference. So it's a great opportunity to network and learn from a carrier, might be on the other side of the country from you. Hey, what's working for you? What KPIs are you looking at? How are you recruiting? How are you marketing? So really sharpening the sword, but also you're executing sales and getting new business. You also have access to our vendors, some of the best vendors in the industry. So I'm learning more about new insurance providers. I'm learning about new technology platforms. I'm learning at new ways to use cold storage boxes for our specimens. So the ECA is a great platform for people who have a career business and they want to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity for them. I'm personally over the mentorship group. So if you've never been to the ECA and you sign up, you're gonna get an email from me, and I'm gonna set you up with someone on the board or someone that I appoint who is a good standing member of the conference to go over what is the conference like? How do you capitalize on it? How should you use your day to get the most value out of it? So we would match up. If you're a carrier, we're going to match you up with a carrier. If you're a shipper, we're going to match you up with a shipper, vendor with a vendor. So it's a great show. I highly suggest anyone to go.
It's a great show. When I owned my business, went many years, had a lot of success with it there. I've enjoyed the partnership we've had. And I think for people in our industry, one of the things that you may not know if you're not a part of it is how well we work together. Not just these associations, but the members of the industry. There's a lot of business shared between member companies. If I was in New Orleans, I need something done in Houston, I reach out to you, and vice versa. And so these conferences really build these strong networks, and they help you to be able to scale and solve needs at a drop of a dime, where most times you tell your customer no, which means that someone else is telling them yes. Right? All right, so we're going to close the last question here. I said last, but this is the last one. Pay it forward a little bit here, right? So what would be your advice to someone who is either getting to the space, a newer entry into space, the things that you've learned in your career and experience, and specifically around your journey as a second generation coming into the business and seeing it? What would you advise them about how they should position themselves to find success the way you have and your family has, so that their company, so they're able to give it to pass it down to their son or their daughter when they
That's a great question. I actually think Harvard did a study on generational wealth but most generational wealth doesn't make it past second generation. Why? I mean, you have the advantage of your family's assets. Why can't you capitalize? Well, if your son's a drug addict and he has a spending problem, that money's going to be gone very quickly. So you may have worked really hard your whole life and your son spent it all the next generation. So how does generational wealth occur? And they found it wasn't through the assets, it was through the connections. So I think you have a son, right? Yeah. So the best thing you can give him is not your money, nothing in your will. It's the connections that you've made in this industry, if he chooses this industry or any other industry, if you have connections. So again, why did I get into City Couriers? My unfair competitive advantage is I had my father. I get to learn through osmosis in the same room as him, but he also introduced me to people that are going to propel my career. So I would say the connections is the best thing. So how do you get well connected? You can go to these shows if you don't have someone you already know. But I would find any way to make the best connections you possibly can. If you don't have any customers yet, I would find one really good customer and take extremely good care of them. And one customer really can keep your business going for a few years. I mean, just depending on who the customer is. But I would find one, take really good care of them, and then scale from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mr. Sam Wiggins Jr., President of City Couriers, I appreciate you being on, telling your story, how you've gone from last to first, imparting your wisdom, and the future's bright, and look forward to continue to watch you grow.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being on.
Thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate it, my man.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.